I don't know about you, but sometimes my brain struggles to form a thought, never mind words, to verbalize how I'm feeling in my journal, so I have found some ways to journal without using any words. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, Other Side of Kate. I am back with a journaling video and I am so excited for this one. I haven't made any journaling content on this channel in a little while, maybe a couple months, but I am back with a really cool video on how to journal without using any words. And I've recently been really into journaling methods that include diagrams or drawing and habit tracking that don't in particular use words as the main premises of the journaling, but obviously there's some words, as you'll see. But yeah, I hope this gives you some creative inspiration to express how you're feeling, stuff you want to track, figure out some things in your life without actually verbalizing them. Okay, first we're starting with something I like to call your daily mood shape, which is basically trying to describe and draw how you feel using a shape. So this can either be done maybe in the mornings throughout your day or in the evenings, just depending on how you're feeling. Instead of using words to describe how you're feeling, see if you can draw a shape every single day to just describe what headspace you are in. And then every day when you put them all together, you can see how your emotions and your moods alter each day. I have a couple of examples that can kind of help you figure out what this actually looks like. So maybe you're feeling extremely creatively inspired and you're just flowing with ideas. Perhaps that looks like a spiral. A spiral can go on and on and on and on forever. So if you're just full of ideas and creative inspiration, maybe your mood can look like a shape. Or maybe if you're feeling really angry and you're snapping at people and you feel really sharp, maybe that looks like a really sharp star. Or maybe the shape just has really jaggy edges. Or perhaps you're feeling very calm and flowy, maybe something like a bubble that moves side to side, very round. There's nothing really sharp or dramatic going on with your mood. And this is kind of something I like to do in the mornings. It's a different way of kind of checking in with yourself on how you're feeling or your mood without boring yourself out with words like, oh, I feel calm this morning, or I felt anxious this morning. Over time that gets really repetitive and boring, so this new technique has been really fun for me. Okay, next, if you're very into doing diary entries in your journal or just describing your day, what you did, what you felt, who you met, what you did, another way you can do this is through trying to draw a map of how your day went. Especially if you traveled a lot this day, this is a lot easier to do, but try and draw different places you went and see if you can kind of create like a constellation with all the places you've been. Maybe draw them out and then see if you can connect them by the lines, or you could draw an actual physical map of the real life places you've been. But this can have a very artistic take to it. It really depends on what you're feeling like doing, but just trying to map out your day instead of just saying, I went to the park and I met up with my best friend and then I came home and I ate dinner. Again, it gets repetitive. Words can get very, very repetitive. So seeing the visualization of how your day went can be something really fun to create in your journal. Another way to put your day together at the end is to create an actual comic strip. This can be through maybe like a point of view comic strip or drawing yourself, maybe just drawing what you did. But again, it's just like a really fun way to draw out your day. This can also be put into sketchbooks and stuff if you want to fill up a sketchbook. But again, it's just another way to not get super repetitive with diary entries. Now moving on to one of my favorite journaling methods recently is using diagrams, something called diagram journaling. And this is taking diagrams that are usually used in statistics, maybe mathematics, science, etc., but using them in your everyday journaling practices and maybe using them to describe how you feel or categorizing different areas of your life. I have a few examples to help you guys understand this a bit better. First is using Venn diagrams when you're trying to categorize areas of your life, perhaps as good or bad or in the middle. Maybe I like to do Venn diagrams with my habits. I kind of like to take a look at all my habits, maybe figure out the good ones, the bad ones, and the ones that are in between, maybe ones I don't need to worry about or I need to work on. But my favorite in particular is using box diagrams and kind of like X and Y axis diagrams to, again, categorize different areas of my life. And I'm going to take you through an example I did the other day in my journal. So this one is going to help you figure out your style. So I've put this diagram into 4 different sections. So as we can see, we have our little cross and we have 4 different sections. And I really wanted to distinguish my style and see if I can find a middle ground and come up with a concept that puts all my 4 different styles that I usually reach towards into one particular style that I can call my own style. So my styles tend to alter depending on the seasons, but I tend to lean into a very vampire-like style. In the colder months, I love dressing black and very vampire-esque. I like the heavy makeup, the reds, the burgundies, the blacks. I like the lace in particular that you can find with vampire-like clothing and that can be seen in a lot of vampire media. I really love that area of style. And then similar to that, so I'll put these 2 boxes together next to each other, because they're kind of very similar in a way. They're both very much darker area of my style. But the next one I'd say I lean towards a lot is like a whimsy goth style. These are very flowy skirts and cardigans and dark clothing. Again, a lot of lace, but there's a lot of florals that can be seen in this area of style. And I usually reach towards this again in like the fall and winter times. So that is one area. But then you kind of have the other area of the spectrum where I like to dress very street style, like kind of boyish. I love layering undergarments with t-shirts. I love baggy clothes, baggy jeans, cargos, but I tend to lean more towards that in summertime or whenever I don't really feel like thinking about what I want to wear. So I tend to lean towards that. And then I have an area of my style that I maybe only kind of lean towards in summer, but it's a very colorful, kind of like the Frutiger Aero Y2K. I love dressing like this when I want to do maybe like fun photos, or if I just feel very bright and I just feel like expressing so much color. But that very rarely happens again. It's very seasonal for me. So I kind of have these 2 sides of the spectrum, and I'm trying to figure out how I can put that all together to come up with a concept. After thinking and having a lot of fun with this diagram, here are some concept names I came up with. And just a PSA, yes, these do use words in these diagrams, but the main premise is using a diagram to journal. So after a while of figuring some stuff out, I came up with some fun concept names to try and put all of these styles into one concept. So first we have Vamp 2K, which is kind of the blend of like the goth, the vampire, and the Y2K and the colorful. And then I came up with Vamp on the Street. That's kind of to blend the street style and the vampire together. We have Cyber Dreamcore, which kind of comes from the techie, the colorful Frutiger Aero, and then the dreamy, whimsical goth style. And then we have Velvet Venom. I don't really know where the velvet ties in, maybe in the vampire-esque side of things, but I just thought it was a really cool name. And then this is just something so fun to do in your journal that can take up a couple pages and also just help you kind of learn who you are as a person and how you like to express yourself. Okay, now we're moving into the section of journaling that requires different keys to understand what you're trying to articulate in your journal. Firstly, we have a map of sounds. This can be a good journaling technique when you specifically go outside, go sit somewhere, or you're walking around and you're taking in the sounds of where you are. Now you're going to want to create a key that has the symbolism for each different sound you might hear. For example, if you're doing this in nature, you can have a different symbol or drawing that translates into the noise of perhaps birds or trees rustling, people talking, maybe something dropping. And this can be a really fun way just to like journal about an experience or this sort of perspective journaling. And it can also look really cool when it's done, depending on what drawings or keys you want to choose from. And I wanted to talk about something I've been taking a heavy amount of inspiration from, which is this whole Dear Data concept. And it's basically these two girls who switched continents and got to know each other through kind of pen paling each other, but they got to know each other through the data they drew about their everyday lives. And they wouldn't really use words to describe their daily habits or what they saw, what they observed, what they heard. They'd use different keys or drawings or just very creative aspects to basically track all their data. Now I have some examples. Firstly, they tracked how they watched the clock. So they tracked from their phone, their laptop, tablets, etc. But I wanted to do this one with screen time tracking, or just tracking which devices I find myself on a lot. So I created a key from my phone, my laptop, headphones, and TVs. And then I also did theaters and miscellaneous devices as well. And I created a key for them all. And then I tried to track them in the shape of a clock. I just thought that was a really cool way to relate to time tracking, screen time tracking. And this is a really fun way to habit track that isn't just coloring in a little box and you just have like a key of colors, which is the typical habit tracking you can see in journaling nowadays. This is another really fun way. And then another example of theirs that I saw, which was really cool, is they tracked the different types of complaints they had in themselves. So they'd have a color and they draw a line to indicate a complaint they had about a different topic. Maybe it was about their mum, their dad, a friend, school, work, the public, themselves perhaps. But as you can see, it creates this beautiful artwork that only you know what it can translate to, because you're the individual who created the key. And I just think these girls are a complete genius, and they're bringing a totally different perspective and artistic flair to journaling, which I feel like we kind of miss, because journaling can get very repetitive, it can get very boring very fast if you don't come up with creative ideas on how to articulate your feelings and your habits in your day-to-days. Now, I'm gonna leave you guys with a homework assignment to put one of these areas into practice, and that is the example I showed you earlier. And it's to create a 4-box diagram to distinguish and categorize your style. So even if you feel like you only really dress to 2 certain styles, see if you can niche those down into 2 more styles so you have 4 altogether. And you're going to put them in each side of the box, and then see if you can create a concept, a word, maybe even a symbol, whatever you want that is your style. And if you said it, no one else would know what you meant, because you came up with it and it's how you describe your style. So there's a fun little activity that you guys should go do if you want. I'm not going to hold it against you if you don't do your homework. Those are all the journaling techniques I have for you today. I will probably do some more in-depth videos on the specific areas I talked about today, but I just wanted to give you an overall way to spice up your journaling this week if you're getting a bit bored of writing the same things down, or if you can't even think of anything to write down. You actually don't have to use words. Your journal can be whatever you want it to be. But if you want to subscribe to a small creator and help her grow, I'd much appreciate that. And thank you for stumbling upon this area of the internet. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye bye!